Today, fun stuff for black and white and Leica aficionados. We're going to take a look at the image quality of black and white RAW conversions from the Q3 versus the dedicated black and white camera, the Q2 Monochrom. Hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. We're going to delve into some real geeky pixel peeping and black and white photography. We'll compare color in black and white, but it's going to be kind of a fun head-to-head between a revered camera, this Q2 Monochrom, and the new kid on the block, the Q3 from Leica. You know, same lens, a lot of similarities. The Q3 has the newer 60 megapixel sensor. The Q2 Monochrom has the older 47 megapixel sensor, but every single photoreceptor is only picking up tone instead of red, green, green, blue, red, green, green, blue. One pixel photoreceptor gets each color, which leads to higher image quality. So we're going to do a little head-to-head, and then I'll also talk about some of the accessories for Q2s, Q2 Monochroms, and Q3s that I just think are essential. Some aren't even that much money. You know, I think some of them are, but it's Leica, so you just come to expect that. I just think, you know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, in the wake of my Costa Rica workshop a couple years ago, my good friend Elizabeth Brooks put her Leica Q2 in my hand, and I took some images with it. I was kind of blown away with the user experience, and then when I got the files back and started really looking at them here in the studio, I realized I had to have one. And this has been a camera that's just become a real passion for me. I ordered the Q3 the minute it was announced. I love just having this one small light, beautifully laid out and intuitive camera that's designed for a photographer to really just focus on the image, and the machine just clicks with you. And I absolutely love it. Now, you know, I shoot a lot of color, I shoot a lot of black and white. The thing that has hesitated at all with me with the Monochrom, even though everybody raves about it, is just the ability, you know, to shoot color or black and white. But the Monochrom has this reputation of just having the highest possible image quality. And, you know, last year during my Oregon Coast workshop, one of the really cool participants let me borrow his Q2 Monochrom, and I shot some images with it. And I had just received my Q3. You know, I ordered it 3 o'clock in the morning the day that it launched, and that wasn't early enough. It wound up taking 5.5 months to get to me, but I just received it, and I compared some of the images converted to black and white between the two. I didn't see that much of a difference. People talk about the fact that the Monochrom, because every single photoreceptor is only measuring tone, if black and white's your thing, has much higher enlargeability, much better dynamic range, much better noise performance. And so it was curious to me. I didn't think to do a full dedicated comparison test. But then, fast forward a while, just a few months ago, my good friend Dr. Hoopkins from Austin, Texas, who's one of our workshop participants and just an amazing guy. He goes by Hoot, and he is a hoot, and we love Hoot. He hit me up and said, "You've got that Q3. I've got my Q2 Monochrom that I love. I'm curious about image quality and whether, you know, the Q3 can stand up to it with its new backside illuminated sensor and some of the new tech that's come in years down the road." And he offered to ship me his Q2 Monochrom from Austin, Texas. And so I have that in my hand right now. And it is a beautiful machine. You know, when you start working with this machine, it's all blacked out. There's no color. It's very subdued. It's fun. You feel like you've got Batman's camera in your hand. And I'll be sad to send it back. I love it, but I've been shooting some test shots with it, and I'm actually going to jump back on the computer before we talk accessories and stuff like that. I'm going to jump back into my Lightroom catalog, and we'll have a look at just a very few images that I shot back and forth with these two cameras. A couple of night scenes of the skyline across the river in Portland here, my home city, blue hour and dusk shots, as well as a little portrait of my daughter Pepper. And we'll look at black and white conversion of the Q3 file versus the black and white file out of this with just a few tone pulls to get the histogram dialed in. So let's jump back and have a look at that. All right, well, as promised, I'm here in my Lightroom Classic catalog, and I've just got a few images, 3 images really, shot with both cameras. The Q2 Monochrom are highlighted in red to make it really easy for you to track, and the Q3 images, I've got, in 2 of the images, I've got color plus the monochrome conversion. The other image is really just to show some noise comparison. So we'll look at sharpness and just overall image quality and noise comparing these 2 cameras. And just to showcase, you know, all I've done are a few basic tone adjustments just to kind of pull highlights and shadows and kind of equalize the images between the 2. I created a virtual copy from the Q3 images to have a black and white image to compare to the monochrome, edited the monochrome the same way, just some little slider pulls, little adjustments. These images, not a whole lot, we'll talk about that in a minute, but none of them have any kind of masking or trickery. They're all raw files or virtual copies of raw files. All right, so let's jump into my little girl Pepper, start things off. We'll go in the library view so we get faster rendering. And we'll, you know, the Q2 Monochrome, I love the color version of this. I love the way that, or the Q3 renders skin tones and colors and sharpness. You know, we compare, there's the black and white conversion in a virtual copy of that file, and let's compare it to the Q2 Monochrome file. And you can tell which one's which because the Q3 is going to say Q3 right here, the Q2 Monochrome right here, date. I name all my files, date, camera, shoot. And you can see, I mean, her eye that I focused on is the left eye in both frames. It's nice and sharp in both. Clearly the 28-1.7 works just fine for that bigger sensor in the Q2 Monochrome. Highlights and shadows are great. This was kind of a backlit, bright day on our darkened porch, no light whatsoever except reflected light coming up onto her, no artificial light. You know, just, it does such a beautiful, beautiful job. Both cameras are great. We're shooting at 100 ISO. There shouldn't be any noise issues, and there aren't. You know, you just get a little bit more resolution at the same situation. Plus, you know, as I would argue for anybody who has to pick one of these 2 magnificent cameras, you wind up with the ability to shoot color or black and white. You know, you just do that conversion. All right, so heading down that same evening, I believe, 3/7. Yep, that same evening, took the whole family down to the water for Blue Hour. It was a nice early spring day here in Portland. And went down along a floating dock, and there was actually a boat running, causing some vibration on the dock, and these little wavelets were lapping on the dock, and I'd planned to go down there and shoot Blue Hour, but the dock was really moving around a fair bit. And I shot this with a faster shutter speed, you know, ISO 800. It was getting dark, 1/6 of a second on the tripod. And one thing that I noticed right away was that the Q3's image stabilization was just working for me a little bit. I tried everything with the Q2 Monochrome. I zoomed in and focused manually as precisely as I could with and without peaking. I used spot focus right here on the bridge details. And the Q3 just really kind of won out for its image stabilization and focus and sharpness in this particular frame. Now, I think it's really kind of probably down to the next generation of image stabilization in the camera. So a little score for the Q3. However, if we zoom in with a little more at 800 ISO, you know, you start to see that just infamous, you know, forget about sharpness because this isn't a sharpness analysis, but you see that at 800 ISO, there's just almost no noise whatsoever in the darker part, the sky here in our Q2 Monochrome image, and we've got a little bit of noise at 800 ISO in the Q3, you know, and some of that probably packing more pixels onto the sensor, although I will argue that I have noticed an improved noise performance out of the Q3 versus the Q2 color version. It actually has a little less noise at higher ISO. So the Monochrome just, you know, not sampling one color on each photoreceptor, red, green, green, blue, sampling tone on every single one of those 47 million photoreceptors seems to give a little bit of edge in noise performance. And that probably would have mattered more in the past than I believe it does today, because Today we have the ability to just jump into Lightroom Classic's develop panel and the detail panel and hit the denoise that resides there, that AI generated noise reduction. And then if we have a look here at what we get from that, this is the same image with just the denoise applied. See, noise reduction. So it creates a new DNG file, which is the native file for Leica. If you were working with a Nikon NEF file, it would become a DNG file if you ran it through Lightroom's enhanced noise reduction. And what you'll notice here is that this image stays nice and sharp here at 300%, and now we're seeing similar noise performance to the Q2 Monochrom. I mean, I just really think that the noise reduction capability that we have in post-production, whether you're using DxO's Pure Raw, which I liked best until Lightroom came along with the one integrated into my preferred workflow in Adobe Camera Raw here in Lightroom Classic, or you're using OM1's no noise, or there are people who throw noise reduction at the end of the workflow. Makes a little less sense to me, but Topaz denoise will do that. It really clears up that noise. So I think that kind of levels the playing field with high ISO images. Let's take a look at these two images, which are shot later in the evening. I moved up off that floating dock, got on terra firma where there was no shake, got firmly rooted on the tripod, and shot some 30-second exposures at f11, getting those nice little stars coming off the lights of the bridges. These are the two Q3 images, and this just showcases to me what makes the Q3 the more versatile of the two cameras. It has such good image quality, and that sensor is amazing, whether in low light or bright light, but it also lets you capture color. And in scenes like this, I personally love the color of a blue hour scene like this in a lot of landscapes. But the black and white conversion is also quite nice. Let's compare this same scene shot with the Q2 Monochrom without any of the vibration and worry. Just back to back, shot these two. And we'll jump in and look at them each at 100% here. They're shot at ISO 100, exact same exposure settings, just seconds apart. And looking at these two images at 100%, I focused on the bridge. Man, I think it's awfully hard to declare one camera better than the other. Maybe if you had to shoot in really high ISO situations and you didn't have access to good quality AI enhanced noise reduction, the one thing I see with the Q3 is just a little bit more resolution. I think that you're getting apples to apples image quality with just a little bit more resolution, and then that ability to jump in and be able to do color should you so desire. That's a big winner for me. I love that ability to capture, either the color or the black and white. Nothing wrong with the Q2 Monochrom, and if all you shoot is black and white, I don't see a whole lot of reason to upgrade to the Q3. But we'll jump back out of here and talk about some of that stuff. Oh, one more thing. I hear a lot of people talking about, well, if you're shooting in color, you can't take advantage of all the filtration, the color filtration that you can do photographing in pure black and white, as we could in the film days or with the monochrome version of the Leica. Well, I would have people think about, a more modern opportunity that actually converting a color photograph from the Q3 or a standard Q2 or whatever color camera you're working with actually affords you an even more powerful way to work with the underlying color in the image as you do your black and white processing. And let me just show you with this image that I captured in our latest workshop in Charleston, South Carolina, that if I come here I'm in Lightroom Classic, I'm in the develop module, and we've got this image from Charleston, and I've processed it a bit for color. But if I were to convert it to black and white, I want you to look down here at what happens in the color mixer. Color mixer is a part of the software that I use and develop a lot to adjust hue, saturation, and luminance of the different colors in my image. But the minute that I flip into black and white, watch, the color mixer changes to a black and white
tab in here, a black and white panel. And you can see what happens is I've got the ability to adjust the tonality of each of the different colors in the spectrum. And I can grab this targeted adjustment tool and hover out over my image. And you can see it highlights that in the sky, blue, not unexpected. If I wanted to make that blue in the sky and down here in the water darker, I could hover out here, click, and drag down. So it kind of gives you the ability to use multiple filters like you would in black and white to adjust the tonality of the colors that are being captured at the same time. You know, you don't have to choose between a red or a green filter. You could have both to work with the colors in the underlying image. So, you know, let's hover out here over the green yellow of our grass. You can get into this area right here in the underlying image, and we could make those greens in the grass brighter to just even add more contrast to our image. So having that underlying color data beneath the surface and converting a color image into black and white allows us to work with some of these underlying colors even more than we might be able to, you know, with a straight up black and white image. We wouldn't have this. We would have to just go in and do masking to, you know, dodge and burn different sections of the image. So just thought I'd point that out. It is kind of an advantage that I don't think about a lot of people think about in converting color to black and white, is that you do get to work with that underlying color information and how it's translated into pure tone.
So I think you can look at those results two different ways. One, you could say, wow, the Q2 Monochrom, if you're into black and white, holds its own pretty well against the Q3. And I'd say that's true. Two is that, wow, the Q3 holds its own really well against the Q2 Monochrom. And at this point, shoots in color and black and white and really can be the one little travel camera, pocket camera you have with you all the time that creates image quality that is mesmerizing. Nobody anticipates the image quality that will result when they see this camera in their face and you snap the photo of them. You know, it is like a secret weapon, and the more someone uses this camera, the more you're likely to fall in love with it. You know, I did a full review of this camera, the Q3 when I got it. You can click right there. I also went through every single menu and every single menu setting and did a full setup video and linked a download of my profiles for this camera. And you can go to that video, and right here you can find the profiles in this video's full description. If you click the video's title and show more, I'll put a link to the Q3 profiles that I put. I'll also put a link to the Q2's profiles. I had the Q2 before this camera. Thanks to my friend Elizabeth Brooks, who loaned me her camera in Costa Rica. I fell in love with it and immediately found a used one on eBay, and then I loved it so much the minute that the Q3 announced, I was up early in the morning ordering it. I've also gone through and created user profiles for this Q2 Monochrom. It's different. The Q2 profiles won't load into it. It has menu settings that are missing, you know, like white balance and some other things. And so it's just slightly different. I have less profiles loaded into this camera. I think there's only 3 or 4 instead of 6. But you can download those profiles as well. I'll put a link in this video's description for you Q2 Monochrom users. That just set it up for action or for portrait or for just knocking around or for landscape and panoramas. Different settings that are good for those different features. So I love this camera. You know, if money were no object, I'd probably have one. But this camera does it all for me, the Q3. I love the Q3. Now, there'll probably be a Q3 Monochrom. And if I can get my hands on one as early as I can, I'll test that for image quality against the Q3, but it's hard to imagine getting any better image quality out of these things. So let's talk really briefly about accessories, things that I think are just critical for this camera. One is this little case, this mirrorless mover 10 case from Think Tank. And you can find all this stuff with the camera over at my links. You click right here, hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. You can just run over there. And I think these little match lens caps, these rubber lens caps, are vastly superior to the metal one that ships from the Leica. A good friend of mine went to a Leica ambassador's discussion of the Leica Q3 when it launched, and that person joked that the only sound that a Leica Q3 makes is the sound of its lens cap falling on the ground. That's what these match caps are great. They're just rubberized. They're designed to fit right over that little lens hood that threads onto the lens barrel. They're phenomenal. I think that for the Q3, I love this soft touch button. The Leica one is kind of outrageously expensive. This one comes in a 3-pack, black, silver, and gold from Amazon, and it's like in the $10 range. So that's just a great buy. I think everybody should get one. It feels great when you're using that on the shutter. You can't screw those into the Q2 or the Q2 Monochrom. They're not threaded. The really right stuff, L bracket, grip and L bracket and QD port is just critical for these cameras. I love it. When they said they weren't going to make one for the Q3, I panicked, and I actually had my Q2's old L bracket machined so that it would fit the Q3, thanks to my good friend Chap Jackson, who helped me with that. He and his good friend, who was a NASA engineer. We got our old Q2 L brackets machined, and they fit fine, but you couldn't easily access the door to get to the charging port and the HDMI port on this camera. So putting that right there worked. And it also blocked the card access door the way that the old L bracket was made, because they kind of changed the bottom a little bit to put the wireless charging port on the Q3. Now I will say, I think that the really right stuff, L bracket and grip for the Q2 feels a little bit nicer. It feels a little bit better made. You know, maybe that's a trajectory, I don't know. I also don't love the fact that not only did they not make the screw that goes into the camera in this L bracket captive, and I can kind of understand that. It has to be a really thin little screw and thin little connection in order to make that cardport door work, but they made it in a standard size instead of a metric size. So it's going to be the only Allen wrench that you need for your camera kit that's not metric. So if you carry a set of metric tools, you're going to need to throw in, I think it's like a 3/8 Allen wrench or something. It's just, I don't understand that. That was a miserable choice. Other than that, it's a great little L bracket. I love that it has a QD port to carry on my LumaLab strap. I think a spare battery is a great idea for these cameras. And I carry a 49 millimeter to 82 millimeter magnetic adapter ring, and I use the same 82 millimeter filters, the case magnetic filters that I use with my Nikon kit. And you know, you can stack to the moon with 82 millimeters in front of this big, this smaller lens, I should say. So those are really the only accessories I ever carry. I stick this little Q3 in this bag. I've got a spare battery right here. They're spendy, but Leica is the only source for them. And believe it or not, they're a little cheaper than the Q2's spare battery, and they have a little more juice. The Q3's battery will power the Q2, but it has a few more milliamps, and the Q2's battery will work in the Q3 with less milliamps. But for some reason, the Q3's battery is even a little less cheaper. And then that mirrorless mover camera bag, which, you know, I keep a cleaning cloth and Allen wrench and a bigger cleaning cloth and spare battery, and that's really all you need with this camera. You know, sometimes I throw a circular polarizer, an 82 millimeter circular polarizer, or some neutral density in the bag to be able to do creative work with this camera. But it is a joy sometimes to go out with just this. You know, and some of the big adventure trips I've done where I've carried so much weight in my backpack, I could picture just taking my featherweight tripod and this and saving so much weight in my pack on multi-day trips, and yet coming back with image quality that's just stupendous. So if 28 millimeters isn't quite wide enough, shoot a panorama. This thing does a beautiful job with that. So I love these cameras. I love the Monochrom. There's no denigrating the Q2 Monochrom, and it'll be exciting to see what the Q3 Monochrom performs like when it comes, which I'm sure it will. But I do think that the Q3 holds its own when you convert those images to black and white. It's astounding. All right, I hope everybody is staying safe, staying creative. Oh, one quick thing, make sure you sign up for our next Office Hours free group photography get-together. With Rick LePage, David Archer, Darren, me. We generally meet on Tuesday mornings, 10 a.m. Check out when the next one is. Sign up, drop a question. You can click this link right here or run to hudsonhenry.com/office hours, and we hope to see you there. All right, so thanks everybody. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying creative. We'll see you next week.